Sure. Okay, so greetings everyone. I'm Shikhar from EcoBuddies. I'll just let you all know a little bit more about my organization. So it's an environmental conservation organization. We're not yet registered as an NGO. We're soon looking to do so. So this is our first podcast, for that matter. And First of all, I wish you all a very safe and healthy world. Sorry, beg your pardon, Earth Day. All right. So we have Ms. Chetsi Ahuja and Narayan Srivastav from Brown Living India and the Bhumi Initiative. So we could start by introducing ourselves.
Sure. I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Brown Living. Brown Living is India's first sustainable and plastic-free marketplace. We've got products from ranging from skincare to clothing to home decor, everything sustainable and curated with the environment in mind. We look at multiple aspects of the product, looking at circular design, looking at packaging, looking at life cycle impact. And that's when we curate these products and we make them available to everybody in India.
That's great, ma'am. So could you go now? A little bit more about the Bhumi Initiative.
So, my name is Narayan and I'm a student of class 10th at City Montessori School, Aliganj Campus 1. So I started an initiative that is almost like 2 years ago on August 15, 2019, along with my classmate, which is known as the Bhumi Initiative. So I think the idea behind this initiative, which as the name refers, works on environmental causes, came from the fact that we as students were taught a lot about the ecological damage that is being done around the world. But we as students found that there is a lack of efforts on the physical ground. And because we come from very privileged backgrounds, there was a lot that we could do potentially. So I think that is what we have been doing over the 2 years. We have planted over 6,000 plus trees across Uttar Pradesh, and we so look forward to expand our work even more.
6,000 trees, commendable, sir. Okay, we're meeting at a time of a medical health crisis, as everyone would know. Could I have your views on the current COVID situation in India? Anyone?
Narayan, would you like to go?
Sure, like as we all have been surrounded by this negative aura that has been really filling in these days, I don't even think that it's a matter of a pandemic anymore, because like the COVID-19 virus has had its impact on so many things that are around us, just the way that we have been living over like almost 2 years now. So it's really a dangerous situation because, and I think the second wave that people are saying that has come along these days is not really a shocker, because like of how huge populations were seen on roads in November and December. And even our schools, the schools in Lucknow and all over India, which are very renowned, even they were open physically. So it's not really a shocker that the cases are rising so rapidly. And I think this is the time that the panic that we had last year during the lockdowns, that panic was needed now. And now that panic has resulted into a complacent attitude in the people, and that has really done its work, negatively in every sphere, to say the least.
Yeah, I really like what you pointed out here, Narayan, but I also think that what this with short period of a year and a half has taught us is that it's really, really important to keep certain things in check. Now, I'm not sure if COVID is a man-created or a mutated version of something, but what I can say for sure is that because we were forced to live in a certain type of condition, it has helped the environment in a certain way where emissions were reduced drastically. Airlines were cut off for a long time. So yes, it's a great thing for the planet to happen. It also tells us as humans that the planet doesn't need us, but we need the planet more. Us being stuck at home, buying only essential stuff, and I keep saying this all the time, that just the fact that when we were buying only essentials and economies came crashing down tells us how much we overconsume. And it's important to note that we should only buy what we need first, and let everybody else consume, basically get that passed down to people who might need it more. Or if we come from privileged backgrounds, then we should keep that sort of resource available for others to have. And that goes for medicines, that goes for oxygen, that goes for like food, and that's across strata. So and this disease is something that has not only affected poor people or certain class of people, but it's affected everybody in some way or the other. So if we stand united against a cause, let's say like a COVID, and sit in a lockdown and still have something positive come out of it, there's so much we can do as a community. That's one learning for me as an individual, actually.
Yes, of course. Well, the current situation, the second wave especially, has actually taught us, how to keep our resources in check, because the oxygen cylinders going out all over the country is actually showing that we need to do something about it as soon as possible. Um, so I don't have a lot to say, but I really want to point out about how people are actually, the mental health that is being affected. We're meeting at this time where we really need to face it, and not a lot of people are being able to do that. So, like just 12 hours back, a new triple mutant strain of the virus was found in India. Well, people don't know much about it yet. Also, I would love to. I won't love to point out, but I would like to point out that just India today is nearing 3 lakh cases and 2,000 deaths a day. We're second only to the US now. So, people choose to learn about these facts. They should avoid it. If I were to put it that way, it's really direct and simple. You know, we we choose to learn these negative facts that negatively impact our mental health, and at this time of crisis we need to keep ourselves healthy both mentally and physically. So um, you know it's very dangerous for your mind. These external facts don't make it any easier for you, it makes it harder. So I just want to spread out a message. I know I'm not a psychologist or anything, I'm no Greta Thunberg, but I just want to tell to the people that we have to avoid these negative facts that might affect our mental health negatively. And I guess just knowing the fact that there is a dangerous disease out there, and we have to not let it spread anymore, should be enough to make you cautious. And I don't think that reading new facts every day, new negative facts every day coming up ahead, is going to help in any sort, in any way. So that's something I would love to say.
So can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think a couple of learnings from what we've been trying to do at Brown Living is that, even in the climate situation or the COVID situation, there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of information overload. Sometimes you reach a point where you either don't want to absorb that information anymore because you're done mentally. There's another way. The other reason could be that you feel so overwhelmed that you don't even know what to do about it. But I think what we need to start doing as individuals is that not let that fear affect us. Fear drastically affects your immunity. So yes, it's important to know what's going on in the world, but it's also important to keep in check to what extent you're letting it affect you. So it's really important to have that boundary and maintain a balance. So yes, I know that there are 3 lakh cases today, but what can I do in my individual capacity? I stay at home. That's something that I can understand and explain to other people simply. So what I'm really trying to say is that yes, there's a problem. It's important to be aware, but it's also important to not let it get to your head and let it affect you internally. I personally had a lot of COVID cases in my own family right now, and we're all trying to manage, and it's extremely difficult to deal with that. Even though you're not the patient, there's a lot that you need to manage. But the only thing that I would say is that even if you're with a patient or if you're trying to help somebody, please stay positive. because that's the only way you're going to recover, and that's the only thing that's going to help you. So make sure that you stay away from fear. Make sure that you're spreading positivity and you're spreading the right message.
Exactly, ma'am. I would love to add something here. Spreading the right message and being positive, having a positive mindset to it is actually, I guess, the key nowadays. And when we lose that, that's and Nara, would you do something?
Sure. Now, can you hear me better? Because I thought my voice was breaking there.
Yeah. Perfect.
Just give me a second. I'm so sorry.
Sure. So please take it in. But in the meanwhile, ma'am, could I ask you a little bit more about Brown Living? When did you start it, and how did you plan to come up with such an organization?
Absolutely. So we started in 2019 November, and I was actually until March 2019 working in different corporate jobs. And over time, I realized that I was working for companies that didn't sort of have the same value system that I believe in personally. And there came a point where I was at a crossroad when I had to make a choice whether I want to be somebody who believes in certain things, trying to live a zero waste life myself, trying to reduce my plastic intake, trying to help other people go plastic free. And then I started talking to multiple brands who were in this space and, understand their struggles. From a marketing background, I always want to understand, where the need gap is and whether there's, an interesting space in the market that I can address as a person. And so the marketplace essentially built itself in front of me. There were certain challenges that a lot of these brands were having, whether that's getting small quantities for products they want to make, or whether it's the right packaging to use. How do you do a carbon footprint assessment? How do you understand sustainability practices, and how do you adopt them in workplaces? And so I just realized that these products were so inaccessible in India. You probably find them only at like a city level market, probably a farmer's market or a flea market. Otherwise, there are so many individual websites, and it just becomes really, difficult to keep track of where you buy from, who do you trust. There's a lot of greenwashing happening. So I thought of creating this one place where we do all the work in terms of checking, measuring sustainability, verifying all the certifications, helping them become more sustainable in that process. And so I devised something called a framework called the Brown Lens, which is derived from circular design, life cycle assessment. We also measure carbon impact and plastic footprint, and we work with these sellers to actually help them become more sustainable possible with the technology and with the resources available today. And then we make that produce available on an online platform, and then that can be extended to the entire country, delivering through e-commerce. What we also do here is we negate the entire carbon footprint of whatever transportation we involve, right? So product essentially goes from the seller directly to the customer. There's no additional layer of transport in terms of hosting it in one single warehouse and then shipping it out to the customer. And there's also certain amount of emission that's emitted when we directly ship it from brand to consumer. So we calculate that at the end of every month, and we sort of negate that with planting trees. So we have partnered with this company called growtrees.com. It's an NGO, and they help us digitally plant that. So even you as an individual can help us in our projects. So far we've planted about 1,500 trees digitally with growtrees.com. And what they also do is they basically employ people from that rural area, and they provide employment to them, provide training to those people, not just to plant trees and take care of the plantation, but also individually train them on how to be an entrepreneur, do basic stuff like invoicing, how to create an invoice, how to sell your product in their individual capacity, because they have a certain craft of their own. And so through that whole project, we've also created about 120 jobs for these people in the rural areas. We also extensively work with brands that work on fair wages, be with communities that are probably marginalized and need that kind of employment, but do that employment in the right way, and that also is planet positive. So it's a holistic system. We work on a very simple model where there's no fancy listing fee, there's no marketing fee. It's just that you list your product with us if you have the right product with us, with you, and you can we only charge like a simple small commission only when you receive an order. Otherwise, all the marketing costs, all costs related to making sure that the consumers who need it probably have that in their consideration set, doing all digital ads, all that is our cost. So just to briefly tell you, we're actually a platform for both consumers and sellers, and want to be that one place where everybody comes together and talks about sustainability, not just talks about it but also practices it in real life. So we're enabling that in a sense.
That's very great. I think one more thing I would like to add here is you actually merge marketing, and sustainability. So industries.
I'm sorry, I didn't get
All right.
your question. Your voice was cracking.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. I was just saying that you've actually tried to merge, both of the industries, like the economy and the marketing setup and the sustainability and the environment. So you've tried to merge them. That's a really
Absolutely.
good idea.
So we follow something called the triple bottom line. It's actually not just looking at profit as a business, but we also look at social and environmental parameters, so to speak, in measuring the success of our business. And so we do a lot of these efforts. And because we're a sustainable business, we want to make sure that we try to tap into each of these aspects. So people are important, planet health is important, profit for our company itself is important. So we try to create solutions for everybody that it suits the planet overall, it suits its species, it suits the people that are working on it, and it also is a profitable business. So we're not calling ourselves an NGO. We don't accept donations. The only way for us to survive and help other brands is for you to transact with us, and that's when you need it. So it's really about essentialism at the very core, but essentialism for the environment.
Right. That's very great. All right. I guess we have Narayan back with us. So would you like to add something now?
Surely, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Miss Ahuja because, like, whatever she said, that is so true on a ground level for even me as a kid to observe. Because I think whenever we go to purchase something or when we buy something, we don't really see the complexity behind that product, or we don't really care to see the ingredients or how it is made or from where it is transported. And that all adds up a lot to the carbon footprints. And when we talk about climate change, our basic focus goes to the deforestation that is being done, or like the factories that are being set up. But these small complexities that we often ignore plays a vital role in building up these carbon gases. So that's an incredible work that you're doing, and I'm so glad to have been informed about it. And adding on to the thing that you said about the system that your company follows, I recently did a webinar with Green Hope Foundation, which works in Canada, and I got to learn a lot about circular economy or regenerative economy, as you say. And I think it's really, there's a huge potentially enormous scope in India because the revenues that will generate from that itself is around 624 billion US dollars. So that vast of an amount can be created if India switches to that, and then that amount can be used for so many other activities. And we are not just talking about the money that is being involved, but we can also see how much we will get back from that sort of a system of economy, because there will be no waste. And like I do admit the fact that in a country like India it is really next to impossible, but like we have achieved quite some things that under our belt that were said to be impossible.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really important that the youth of our nation, which I include myself in proudly, uh, things like this. It's really difficult at this point as a country to be completely circular. There's a lot that needs to change, and I think industrialization in India also came in slightly slower. So we're probably 20 years behind America in the consumption and consumerism space. But that's a good thing, because if we realize today, then we can almost reverse the effects of that of the consumption we're going to do in the next 10-15 years if we act now. So that's the intention, and that's why we want to make sure that sustainability becomes mainstream. It's not something that is a good to have or is a corporate social responsibility conversation for some company to have, but it's something that we want to advocate for everybody and anybody to have. So you may not be 100% sustainable, you may not have entirely sustainable practices or sustainable materials or methods to do, but there's always something you can do about it, and there's always small changes that you can make in the running of your company. So it's just sensitizing both sides, consumers as well as companies, to be able to ask for that special effort for the environment and for the people that live on it, because otherwise there's no way to go. We have very short time to fix this problem, and yeah, so that's all I wanted to say.
Definitely, and just a little something to add. Like, we often complain to the government and even to the companies about their carbon emissions, but what we often overlook is that who is demanding for those products. If there are factories being set up, in the residential areas, where is the demand coming from? That's us. And as the youth, because we are so aware about climate issues, and we as the youth have got the privilege to access the internet on a higher level than probably our uh, like precursors did. So that is a good thing that we can learn from the internet, is that we are aware of what is happening around the world, and that awareness needs to be translated into action. So, like, as you said, that sustainability has to go mainstream, and that is so important, because we as humans need to be aware that if we are even buying a packet of chips, that even has consequences on the earth. So when we will become socially aware and socially conscious, then only will the demand for those products increase, and that is something that really.
Yeah, that is spot on completely. I agree with you, Narayan. Well, one more thing I would love to add here is, as the youth, there's so much we can do. Um, and could I just have a little bit of words from either of you about um, what you think has to be done next, as the youth of the country?
I'm sorry, could
Anything.
you repeat the question?
Well, yeah, no,
Wasn't very
I was
audible.
just asking, as the youth of the country, what do you think has to be done next, given urban sustainability? Do you think that we're being able to spread the right message, or do we need to change that?
Narayan, would you like to go first?
Definitely. I think, as if there's one message that needs to go to everyone, that probably has to be that today we are at a point where sustainability is not a fancy choice that we may have or we may not have. It's not a choice anymore, it's a chance. And that difference between the two words, choice and a chance, I think that pretty much sums up all what I have to say, because it is a chance that we still have at this point. Because this is like a do or die situation, and the reason why we stress so much on it is because we might not see the immediate consequences of it right now, but they are coming in points, and we can see it as the bushfires that happened recently, or even the pandemic. Because even if the environment is regenerating, still you can also see that if the point where lockdowns were lifted up, the amount of people that rushed into the roads, that really gives a horrific image of how much we still haven't learned from the pandemic. Because if there was one thing that the pandemic did teach us, was that how we can survive without moving out every weekend. It is possible, and it is socially, it is our duty to go out only when necessary, because again, when we go out, we impose so many consequences on the nature if we do not take any recyclable or ecologically good source of transportation. So I don't think we need a pandemic to teach us this, but if there's one message, then it's definitely that you're not being given a choice here. You are given a chance, and you need to take.
Well, yes. Since you brought up the pandemic again, I would just soundly, last night we all saw the Prime Minister giving out a message that the lockdown should be the last resort, and we have to save ourselves from a lockdown. In the back of my mind, I just think I'm not criticizing the decision made by the Prime Minister in any way, but I'm just trying to say, do you think that the government is trying to say that they're picking the economy over life? Could I have any views on it? Do you think the government is trying to pick the economy over life?
Well, I think because the economy was shut down for a while, it did affect a lot of people, not just financially, but you know, basic security about life. Like people went running to their villages because they realized that their expenses were so much higher in the city, so they needed to go back to their hometowns, or they needed to take care of somebody in their hometowns, and that's why the rush, perhaps, also because the cost of living in a city is much higher than living in a village. But I don't think the government is choosing economy over people. uh, I think what they're trying to say is that it's important to understand the gravity of the situation, and it's important for you as citizens to understand that yes, we can impose a lockdown. It's in the government's. It's just going to take them one press conference, and it's possible. But they understand the repercussions of that, and they understand what it will do to a lot of people who are daily wage earners, um, and rural farmers who will be affected by this. So it's just to basically make people understand who are probably not still staying at home and probably wondering about for unnecessary reasons. Uh, a lot of vast majority of us are still staying at home. You and I are sitting in our houses and not really stepping out. But there are still a large chunk of people who probably are not considering the gravity of the situation. And it's similar to climate change. I mean, all these disasters that happen, some people only work on the rocket principle whenever their bottom is on fire, is when they actually do something about it. But then there are some people who take preventive action. So we need more people to be preventive than make reach a point where the rocket needs to be fired up. So I think it's important to prepare people, that if we don't comply to a certain amount of regulations, then there might be consequences to that. Um as uh, as the prime minister, or as somebody who's holding that cabinet, I'm sure they have so many other decisions to make and so many people to take care of as an economy. I don't think even they want this to happen, but it's happening. So it's really like a last resort that they will probably have to use. What do you think, Narayan?
Definitely. Um,
I also don't think that it's that
should I
black or
speak?
white. It's actually because it's such a large country, such complex demographics, such you know varied types of people to adhere to. I think it's a very difficult decision to make.
Exactly. And when like to have such an honorable office, to hold such an honorable office, I'm sure that the decision that they'll take will be the wisest, because frankly speaking, lockdowns can be the last resort because of the repercussions that they have on the economy. And I think that has also affected the growth of the country. And you cannot prioritize, you cannot, like, I think we as a country, we cannot afford another lockdown. And like that should be the last step that we need to take. And like after what all we have been through, I think that this is the time where we should start this huge wave of realization that we cannot go into another lockdown, and we have to be socially responsible not to step out until it is necessary. Because how long can, if you frankly speak, how long can there be a lockdown? This pandemic may last, what if there's another year that we go through this pandemic again? We cannot rely on the government to force us to, that stay in the houses. We also have social responsibilities, like as it is mentioned in the constitution, we have rights and we have duties. So I think that this is another duty that is popping up in this situation, is that we have to be socially conscious, not just about us, not just about our family, maybe our neighbors, maybe, the citizens of our.
Well, exactly. Speaking about the social responsibilities and duties that we have, that is the message that we are willing to spread. And, there's no other way to spread this message than through the power of social media. Also, one more thing I would love to add here is that it's not just about protecting yourselves, as you said, Narayan. It's just not about protecting your own family. It's about protecting your neighbors. It's not only about protecting anybody in your locality, because if you see that if you contract the virus from somewhere, and if you are and if it is spreadable from you as a host body, you might be isolated in your room. You might be able to protect your family from it, but you don't know how many other people you've already infected with that virus. And so that's speaking about social responsibility and duties. Exactly, we should know, we should be aware of our social duties and responsibilities as citizens of this country. So I don't think we need to rely on the government to take that decision for us. I mean, a lockdown hasn't been announced yet, but you can lock yourselves down at home. It's just that you need to have the power to face it. And I think that's the only way out of this crisis now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
So that was all I had. And so I think that's it. Thank you, really, really big um, thanks to both of you, Ms. Jetsi and Mr. Narayan. Thank you for being here with us, and I hope we'll be able to do this again sometime. But I also hope at the same time that this crisis doesn't continue for long, so that we get to do a similar kind of podcast post the pandemic. And um, so just be safe, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for having us.
Can I add something?
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so before like we conclude this, I really have a message to all the people who are going to watch it, is that we at the Bhumi Initiative have been working with the Anchor team. And because, as you know, like in the situation in Lucknow, is that there's a dire need of oxygen cylinders or plasma donors and stuff like that. And the people who are really in need are not being able to find it. So that pretty much explains to an extent how deficient our country has become because of the the crisis again. So we have been working on updating the spreadsheets and the resources and verifying them. So like to whoever watching this, if there's any need of any of the resources that are required to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, please feel free to text us or DM us at the Bhumi Initiative or the Anchor team. We are there for you. And please stay safe. And like I wish all of you a happy year.
Thanks, Narayan, and I'm sure this message will be spread to as many people as possible. Uh, we would all really feel safer, and the people out there really need people to step up, like you and your organization. So that's a really, really good thing, and I appreciate it a lot. All right, so thank you very much, the both of you again, and that would be it for today. So, is there anything anybody wants to say?
I think I've said everything I have to say. Thank you so much for
All
having me.
right. Well, thank you very much for being here, and I think that concludes it. So, thank you, and hope to see